Ladies and gentlemen, I have something new for you. Well, we're going to do things a little bit differently today. I've been making videos in the past where I compare performances with the tempo markings in the score, single beat tests. This is part of that series, but we're going to do things a little bit differently. As I said, I'm going to put you to work. So what are we going to do? We're going to take Opus 299 by Czerny, and yes, it's again Opus 299, these etudes by Czerny, but I'm going to explain why I'm doing that. We're going to listen to two performances, one by this gentleman named Fumikri Himikri. This is actually the recording that's featured as a kind of example recording on IMSLP, and we're going to compare that to Vivian Harvey Slater, which is a lady that really can play the piano, recording made in 1969. She played a lot of Czerny. And why did she do that? Because she's kind of fourth generation of Czerny students. So her line of teachers goes back to Czerny in 4 generations, which is pretty impressive. You know what I think about tradition and how people preserve the tradition? There are videos on my channel that teach you about that. Actually non-existent. People didn't want to preserve tradition. They just called them in the tradition, and tradition for them meant like, okay, we're upgrading everything that we know to the standards of the new time. So we're going to compare these recordings, and you are going to take a piece of paper and you're going to note down how far you estimate that these tempo are from the Czerny tempos in single beat. So the modern reading of the metronome. If you're new here, single beat is just you take one click of the metronome, and that one click represents the duration of the note value in the metronome. In case you have quarter note or half note 108 as a first etude here, every click represents the duration of a half note. Every next click you should be at the next half note. We think that in the 19th century that was completely different. They didn't use the metronome as we do today. They used the metronome as a pendulum, which is the back and forth together represented the duration of that note value. So you didn't have half note, half note, half note, half note. You have half note, and half note and half note. With this, what we call whole beat, metronome practice, WBMP, all the mysteries around the metronome of Beethoven, of Chopin, of Schumann, in the entire 19th century disappear in an instant. And I know people like mysteries. They like mysteries. They like the stories behind that. But if you really want to discover how these composers played, how they envisioned their music to be played, what's actually the real character of those pieces, then we have to apply the WBMP, because there is no other solution, as we are going to come into conclusion in this video as well. While you're listening, you mark down the percentages that you think these people are removed from the original Czerny tempo. However, in the case of Vivian Harvey Slater, there will be one recording. Maybe not in this batch of 10 recordings. I'm only going to show you 10 recordings, and then we will make 4 or 3 other videos with numbers 1120, 2130, and 3140. So the Opus 299 has 40 etudes. But one of them, Vivian Harvey Slater, is very close to single beat. So you have to pay attention, because every etude you hear, it could be that. With this introduction, which I hope was not too long, don't forget, I'm not speaking my mother tongue, and I appreciate all of you saying like, Wim, your English is excellent and we understand every word you say. Still, it's very fatiguing for my brain to speak in a language that's not mine, especially on video. For one reason or other, that makes it much harder than, for instance, in a podcast format. And so I'm sometimes using a little bit more words than I wish to, which makes my introduction sometimes a little bit longer, but nothing I can do about that. But before we jump into the real content, do me a big favor, subscribe to this channel. Also check out our Patreon page. And when you're watching this video before the 2nd of July 2025, we have a Kickstarter running with Chopin works played by Alberto Sanna. 5 CDs, and of course also available digitally and streaming and what have you. For you, and the unique feature, of course, is to have your name in the booklet of that recording. Similarly to this one and the recordings that are over there, we're building a real collection, and you want to be part of that. So do pause this video as many times as you want, because you will need some, I think, adjustments also in the comparison between the two performances that I'm going to share with you. Of course, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you the solution to this episode, the first 10 etudes. And for the next episode, you will be prepared. So because you will be realizing what kind of speeds we are talking about. Now, let's just listen a few seconds, 10 seconds or so, not too long, to Mr. Fumikri Himikri. And then right after that, number 1 played by Vivian Harvey Slater. And then we go back to number 2 and so on until we reach number 10. So there we go. number 1 by Miss Ari Slater. Just as a side note, she's cheating, right? Did you hear that? So the pedal all over the place has, of course, a reason. Been talking about that a lot of times. The pedal helps with these speeds. It's almost impossible without. So now we move on to number 2, played by Mr. Himekri. Here he goes. And then we compare to Miss Slater. Again, a lot of pedal. Now we move on to number 3. Okay, there we go with Miss Slater. So a little bit longer fragment again, a lot of pedal, but we move on to number 4. Okay, and now Slater. Okay, moving on to number 5. And then the probably faster performance is coming. Let's go to number 6 now. Let's go to number 7. That's a beautiful etude, by the way. It's very nice to play. Up to number 8. just again, try also. I mean, it could be an exercise just to try to copy both players. Now, before you watch the end of the video, you can pause it and then see how far you get. And keep in mind, while you're doing that, it's meant for beginners, and Czerny writes in the preface, you play these pieces in the tempi that I marked, so in the metronome marks. Do the last one, then we move on to the conclusions. Okay, so now let's draw some conclusions here. You see the result of Mr. Himekri. You have the tempo here and notes per second, and that is the percentage that he is playing according to Czerny's metronomization in single beat. So 68%, 69%, 68%, and so on. So there is a trend for him to be around roughly 30% below Czerny. And if you then see the number of notes per second, 9.8, 9.6, and so on, he has an average of 9.6 notes per second, which may not resonate a bell for you, but if you go on my channel and you type in this title here, you search for this video, what is the historical documented musical maximum speed? I mean, that's a terrible title, I should change that. And what's the implication for us? Just type it in and then you come in this video. It's an older video, but you get the information that you need. The speed limit here, 10 notes per second, is the historically documented maximum speed for players. That's from the 17th century, 18th century, and 19th century combined. So you have quite some sources, at least we found quite some sources that speak about maximum playability. What's the maximum speed? And oftentimes you will see like 10 notes per second for prestos, like in the maximum what the musician can do. Sometimes you see it connected also to like, okay, but with clarity still is necessary, then 9 notes per second is actually the maximum. If you go back to Mersenne, mid-17th century, there you have 8 to 10 notes per second as well. So it's revealing in a way that this is confirmed by this standard performance. I mean, for Himekri, you can say, okay, in comparison to Vivian Harvey Slater, his technique might be less fluent. And keep in mind, he's not using the pedal. That makes your life infinitely harder. The sound of the piano is captured in a less fancy way. I mean, in the 60s, they had recording equipment. We have not improved upon that. So these recordings of that time are just incredibly beautiful. And so all of that, of course, plays a role. But here you see a confirmation, literally 9.6 notes per second on average, 10.4. I mean, in some cases, well, that's unbelievable, right? So does the guy has a margin to speed up? I'm not so sure. Why wouldn't he have done that? Now we go to Harvey Slater. There you have the full comparison with the Czerny metronome marks. I mean, it's one big table that will be in the book. It's not this table, but I mean, those are the numbers that will go in our book. And now we check her tempos. So 84%, 81%, 83, 81, 84, 90%, 76, 78, 87, 76. So compare that to your table and just post it in the comments. I really would like to see what you came up with. I mean, if you are new to this and you would not, or if you don't know, if I would not make the case, if I would not make the video and you would show these performances to listeners, to friends, they would not come up with these numbers. I mean, they're impressive, huh? 84%, but they are below Karl Czerny, and not by a small margin. And now, talking about average notes per second, C reaches on average 11.3 notes. Sometimes he goes a little faster, but of course this drags it a little bit down. So 11 to 12 notes, 13 notes per second here. And if you go to that one video I showed you, you will see that at the end of the 19th century, there were some research done, and people were actually writing articles about maximum notes per second. People actually measured the speed of Von Bülow, Tausig, Rosenthal, I mean the big performers, the big virtuosos of that time. And they came to the conclusion that they reached 12 notes per second for short runs. Slater is surpassing those because she can maintain 12 notes per second for longer duration, like a whole Czerny etude. Of course, when it gets more difficult, her speed is dropping down. This shows that when we listen to players that do their best, that play at their maximum speed, not to prove something, but just to present us these etudes in the way they are playing, they actually not only play way slower than Czerny indicated, while the pieces are for beginners. I have to stretch that. The 299 is actually all you need if you want to reconstruct historical metronome marks, because guess what? When you see these numbers, what are you going to do? I mean, play the first two etudes and then say like, no, case closed and everything is fine. And now we can play still not a lot of these metronome marks, but we can pretend as if we solved the thing. Or are you going to sit down and say like, okay, but when we cannot do this in a simple etude, because let's face it, the first 10 etudes here are not so difficult. It's just the speed that makes them impossible. If we cannot do that in the current metronome reading, well, what other options do we have? Well, I have news for you. There's only one, and that's the one we present. And so, yeah, Vivian Harvey Slater is actually creating a kind of new floor on top of that 1899 research that I was talking about. And that's super fascinating. You see those numbers in reality actually develop in front of you. But the numbers are pretty devastating, even though her performance, especially I would say, because her performance was mind-blowing. And now, just as a closure, let's listen, as I promised, to one etude that I recorded several years ago. Still on the Frenzel pianoforte that we don't use often since we have the Fritz. I mean, it's difficult to have all these instruments maintained in like performance recording, especially tuning. Finnish pianofortes. But anyways, I made that recording, and let's go to number 6, because of number 6, as you remember, Vivian Harvey Slater reached 90%, 19, so 90% according to Czerny single beat. So there might be a good comparison here for you. Just, this is kind of calibration. This is a whole beat tempo. This is like 7-8 notes per second, which is in that time like considered to be like very fast. Presto. Remember, 10 notes per second is the absolute maximum documented speed, 17th, 18th, 19th century, that people played. When Czerny pushes to 7-8 notes per second, that's already very fast, very close to that maximum threshold. And keep in mind, it was meant for beginners. It was not meant for the virtuosos of that time or today. They didn't play the Czerny Opus 299. I mean, that thing at the end, with the hand that actually has to play over 2 octaves. I mean, try that. Try that and let me know in the comments if you succeed in doing that, because that's not easy. Okay, so there you have it. Let me know what you think about this series. If I'm gonna continue, but if you're looking forward to that, sometimes it's hard for me to figure out what you want. So I'm trying, do my best. In the meantime, don't forget to check out our Kickstarter and be part of that. Be part of these boxes, this collection. Have your name in the booklet. I mean, that's so cool. When you open this and you will get the Chopin box, it will be green, will be a beautiful color. And then your name will be here at the end of the booklet here. All supporters that we had. So looking forward to have your name there as well. And that was all I've got for you today. So thank you for watching. We see each other very soon again. Bye.